Hey, how's it going, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing The Color Out of Space by H.P. Lovecraft and explaining why I gave this short story a 5 out of 5. When people say that H.P. Lovecraft is a master of his craft, they're not exaggerating. I was actually speechless when I finished this short story because of how incredibly well written it was. A lot of people will relate H.P. Lovecraft to, the Call of Cthulhu. When I go to, bookstores, you just see that one plastered everywhere as like the holy grail, the beacon of his writing. And while I did enjoy that one, this one by far is the best story that I've read by him and the best short story that I've ever read. I'm dipping my toes into more short stories. I'm finding that I like sci-fi more than any other type of short story, so I haven't been exposed to a lot of it, but there's more content here in 20 pages than some full-length novels have that are 300 to 400 pages long. I'm not kidding. What this one is about is a guy, and another thing real quick, what I really appreciate about Lovecraft's writing, or what I really come to notice and enjoy, is that the story is always being told from someone who has lived through the experience of the story and is just recalling it and almost like having a conversation with the reader. So it's not like they're actually living through it at the present moment. They're recalling a story as best that they can describe it. So the narrator's telling a story about someone he knew who lived on a farm there, that a meteorite crashed near the farm, and within the meteorite, it was exhibiting strange properties. When they try to break it open or take pieces of it, it would always disintegrate or just disappear. And the color aspect of it was emanating a color that was beyond the visible spectrum, but they only named it a color because they didn't know what other kind of word to use for it. It wasn't really like a color. They just didn't know how else to describe it, which is kind of parallel, which I like his thought process of writing this way, because it takes such a simple idea, but expands upon it and creates this whole world around having such a normal society, but then just dropping one little, raindrop of weirdness into it, which can make people go mad. Similar to the Call of Cthulhu story, where when they go to Cthulhu's headquarters, his like lair, they were saying that the geometry was wrong, and like when you looked at it, it looked convex or concave, like you couldn't tell whether it was coming at you or you were looking into something, which who would think of describing the geometry of the lair as being scary? Usually you like, oh, the monster's scary, which he was, but he seems to focus on details that other writers don't focus on, which puts his writing just on another level and really solidifies his role as being a master of this writing. And while okay, so back, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around because there's just so much to talk about just within these 20 pages. The narrator's recalling someone that he knew who lived on a farm. The meteorite landed, and this color is emanating from it. But the longer the meteorite is there, and even when it disappears, the surrounding landscape starts dying. Crops turn gray and also grow, but to like unnatural sizes. But if you try to eat it, it's like the fruit is gone bad and it's gray and it's brittle and it tastes like ash. So all of the surrounding, it keeps spreading, and all of the surrounding landscape keeps dying, and the family on the farm starts to go insane. And anyone who is near that area long enough starts to get weird, ideas in their head and starts to hallucinate and whatnot. Since it's only 20 pages long, I don't really want to give out more than that. But where Lovecraft really excels Um, he's a great storyteller also, but he excels by planting a very small idea into your head, like this, where a meteorite could have a color that just seems unnatural, and then takes that simple idea and uses his incredible vocabulary to describe the setting and the emotions that the characters are going through, where there's nobody like him. There's nobody that writes the way that he writes, and it paints such a vivid picture. My other review that I'm uploading that I just did right before this one was Robert Silverberg with his sci-fi stories, and Lovecraft is sci-fi also, but they're kind of opposite writers. Whereas in my Robert Silverberg review, I talked about Robert Silverberg is a great storyteller, but he doesn't put a lot of detail in his stories, and he lets you fill in those details. Whereas Lovecraft has an interesting idea and explains just a moment in time that someone went through in this story. And he doesn't like go too deep into the storytelling for this one, but the way that he describes how that color and that meteorite are interrupting just the natural causes or the natural way of life in this small farm is just, it's almost like indescribable, where you'd have to just read it for yourself. And if you're, thinking about getting into some kind of sci-fi or short story, or you're thinking about Lovecraft, start with this one. I started with the Call of Cthulhu, and I was blown away by that one. And I didn't think that his writing could get any better, really, because everybody talks about the Call of Cthulhu. But if you want to be speechless at the end of your reading, and you want to be left with a book hangover, but just with a short 20-page short story, read The Color Out of Space, because you will not be disappointed. So this one earns a 5 out of 5. And so far, I think I've only read Call of Cthulhu and Color Out of Space, which I've given both 5 out of 5s. So he's on a roll so far. So I plan to get through this whole book. And this isn't even everything that he's written. I know he's written numerous things, and, so it's, while I don't have a lot of exposure to short stories, I think I found my niche in sci-fi short stories rather than any kind of like other genre, because it's just short and sweet and to the point, and it's just kind of, you just kind of dip your toes in, and it just kind of leaves you with a sense of accomplishment for reading something so fantastic in such a short amount of time. So definitely check out H.P. Lovecraft, and I'll see you guys on the next book review video. See you later.